The other thing on these ETFs that's interesting is that money's been coming over on the ETFs, and that's a good thing. It's been driving the price higher. But, it's still, these institutions take time. They don't do things quickly. It takes time to filter in. And here's a data point I think people might find interesting.
Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday Finance. In this video, Larry Lepard discusses Bitcoin and crypto. According to Larry Lepard, basic arithmetic, $300 trillion in financial assets, with $1.4 trillion being a part of it. Bitcoin, let's calculate which portion of that 300 will come after the 14. He's referring to the 14 that are remaining. It needs to be higher. Larry Lepard wrote a paper in 2018 on this topic, and at that time, Bitcoin was valued at $140 million. Therefore, it has experienced a significant increase in value since 2018, starting at $6, 6,900. Larry Lepard authored that paper, and it's worth noting that there has been a notable influx of money into ETFs, which is a positive development. The recent increase in price has been significant, although there are still some lingering concerns. These institutions require time, so do not rush. Things can be quite fast-paced, but it's important to remember that it takes time for information to be properly processed. Here's a data point that Larry Lepard believes people might find intriguing. He has a few clients, one of whom has an account at Morgan Stanley. He recently visited his broker at Morgan Stanley and shared the following. He expressed interest in purchasing a Bitcoin ETF, specifically from Fidelity or a similar provider. However, the broker informed him that they were unable to facilitate the transaction due to certain restrictions. Even if it's not requested, we are unable to make a purchase on your behalf. However, we do offer our own product, which helps mitigate some of the market fluctuations and lots of things Larry Lepard discussed. So please watch the video to end and share this video and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance. Thanks.
Look, the fact of the matter is that investment managers are charged with delivering performance. Okay, that's what we, people who manage money, get paid to do. My clients say, how much money have you made for me? How much performance have you generated? You know more about this stuff than I do. I'm giving you my money. Please give me a high rate of return. And here you are, you've got this asset that, has outperformed every other asset in the history of the financial markets. On a 15-year, 10-year, 5-year basis, whatever you want to look at. You can find some short periods of time where obviously it did not outperform or it had a big correction. But in general, if you take a long enough window on it, it's been the top performing financial asset kind of ever. And so, one would have to say or ask any manager of assets, how can you ignore this thing? Look at these numbers. And what is going to change that's going to make these numbers, what's going to make this trend stop? I always say that, what you want to do with a business, you want to invest in businesses where dogs are eating the food and there are more dogs showing up all the time. And Bitcoin's a classic example of that, right? The dogs are eating the food and there are more dogs coming to the party. And unless that changes, it's like, why aren't you long this thing? Now, obviously the waiting is an issue. And if you're 80 years old and you can't suffer a drawdown, you can't go 100% into it. But, there's nobody who can't have 1 or 2% in it. If it goes to zero, they won't be affected. And if it does a 10 bagger or 100 bagger, it'll make a meaningful impact on their portfolio. So, to me, it's a no-brainer. And this is going to happen. The other thing that's going to happen, Sam, I think, is MicroStrategy is going to get big enough that it's going to get put into the S&P 500. So then you'll just have all these, as you know, the big trend away from active management to passively managed money has been an enormous trend over the past, 10, 15 years. That's just going to continue. Math, 300 trillion, financial assets, 1.4 trillion Bitcoin. Do the math. What piece of that 300 is going to come after the 1.4? The 1.4 is going higher. It has to. I wrote a paper in 2018 about this, and at the time, Bitcoin was worth 140 million. So it's done a 10 bagger since 2018. And because it was at 6,000, 6,900 when I wrote that paper. And, the other thing on these ETFs, it's interesting is that money's been coming over on the ETFs, and that's a good thing. It's been driving the price higher. But it's still these institutions take time. They don't do things quickly. It takes time to filter in. And here's a data point that I think people might find interesting. We have a couple of clients, one of whom has an account at Morgan Stanley, and he went to his Morgan Stanley broker and he said, I want to buy some Bitcoin ETF. I want to buy, Fidelity or something. And the broker said, no, you can't do that. We're restricted. Even on unsolicited, we can't buy it for you. We do have our own product, which takes some of the volatility out, blah, 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 pay us 100 bips, typical sleazy Wall Street thing, right? Buy our thing, not the real thing, right? And then another client of ours has an account at Edward E. Jones, which is, kind of a high-end retail brokerage, kind of boutique-y, but a lot of people with a fair amount of money in the United States use them. Same story. He went to his Edward E. Jones broker, said, buy me some of this Bitcoin. And I said, sorry, it's restricted. We can't do that for you. So now I think that's going to change, because what's going to happen is, Morgan Stanley and Edward E. Jones are going to realize that if we don't let our clients buy this, they're going to leave us, and so, but the point is, we're still climbing a big wall of FUD. And, it's still the people. I mean, there are a lot of people I know when I talk about buying Bitcoin and they look at the price, and I say, and I'd recommended it to them all along the way. And they go, well, I missed it. I should have bought it at 30. I should have bought it at 15. Well, I can tell you what, when I was buying it at 1,500, I thought I should have bought it at 100. And no matter what price you buy it at, you always can look back 5 or 10 years and say, well, I'm too late.
Many individuals often discuss Larry Lepard's advice on purchasing Bitcoin and evaluate its price. They believe that he consistently recommended it, but unfortunately, he missed out on the opportunity. If he had made a more informed decision, he would have purchased it at a lower price. Instead, he bought it at a higher price and now regrets it. No matter what price you purchase it at, you can always reflect on the past 5 or 10 years and conclude that you may have been a bit late to the game. Returning to the broader figures, we have 300 trillion and 1.4. You're not too late, We're still here. This kind of reminds me, it's as if the internet was in its early stages back in 1995, and we had a lot of progress ahead of us. It's interesting to note the widespread reach of the internet and how it brings to mind a specific example in Madeira. It's reminiscent of the early days of Microsoft, as a financial analyst would observe, as it establishes itself as a new foundation of wealth. Let's back to the Larry Lepard interview.
But back again to the big picture numbers, 300 trillion, 1.4. You're not too late. We're still, this kind of reminds me of like the internet in 95. And, we had a long way to go in 1995 on the internet in terms of penetration. So it also reminds me of, and I use this example in Madeira, it's kind of a new base layer of money. It reminds me very much of Microsoft in the early days. I think I told the story, I bought Microsoft and then I screwed up and I sold it because I wanted to buy a condominium, which is a logical thing for a young guy to do. But, I couldn't really foresee and understand just how every person in the world was going to have a PC, and every PC was going to need operating software, and Microsoft had a monopoly on the operating software for those PCs. And so, the network effect of it all it just kept multiplying for years and years and years. And, that's I think what's going to happen here. It's sailors, it's going up forever, Laura. I mean, it really is. And let me just say, there's a very interesting parallel here that some of your people may not know about, which is to say that, pre-2003 or 4, I'm not sure I have the year exactly right, but I'm pretty sure it was 04. If you wanted to buy gold, you had to go to a coin store, right? You had to, go buy coins or buy bullion or find a specialist dealing in gold. If you had money in your brokerage account, you couldn't buy gold. There was no way to do it. And a gold ETF got created. Boom, GLD, the biggest gold ETF in the world now. And, at the time, gold was in the $250, $300 range area, and there was nothing in the gold ETF the day they launched it. And of course, now it's, 60 billion plus of assets. And in the time frame, the demand that ETF created for gold in that time frame took the price of gold from $250 to $1,900 from the date of launch to the peak in 2011. So almost 7x your money, in kind of
in like a decade.
Yeah, in less than a decade. And, I'm not saying this isn't exactly analogous. Okay. It's different. It's a different asset and everything else. But the point is that when you open up a channel that allows people who have brokerage accounts to very easily say, oh yeah, give me some of that. It's a ticker symbol. It's going to increase demand for it, full stop. And so that's, I think we will look back a few years from now, and there'll be a lot of people say, oh God, I wish I'd bought a whole coin at 70 grand. I think in 10 or 15 years, it'll be a big deal to, your kids will say, holy shit, you're a whole coiner. I mean, you have an entire coin. Those things are worth $1 million a piece. Gosh, Dad, you're a millionaire. How did that happen? I think that will happen. But that's years out. That's not tomorrow. It's probably 2030 or so, but I think it's coming.
If you needed to visit a coin store, it was necessary to purchase coins, bullion, or perhaps locate a specific item. Experts specializing in gold. If you had funds in your brokerage account, purchasing gold would not have been possible. However, a gold ETF was introduced, resulting in a significant development. GLD is currently the largest gold ETF globally. It's worth noting that during that period, gold prices were in the range of $250 to $300. There was initially no value in the gold ETF when it was first launched. However, it has now grown to over $60 billion in assets, and during that period, the demand for gold created by that ETF caused the price of gold to rise. The value skyrocketed from $250 to $1,900 from the date of launch to its peak in 2011, resulting in almost 7 times your initial investment. If you learned something from this video, then please like this video and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance, and we will meet in next video. Thanks.